Mating. This is the only time the queen will ever need to leave the hive, aside from during a swarm. It's like going to a nightclub. The queen will go to a designated area where thousands of drones will be congregated, and, not necessarily all in one go, the queen will be mated with 15 to 20 times. Only the drones with the best flying skills and determination will be able to pass on their genes. Once the drone finishes, his genitals essentially explode, bursting out of his body, falling off, taking most of his abdominal tissue with them, and he dies. Hive cycle. In the spring, the queen will start laying eggs. The eggs laid will increase as spring continues. As the colony expands and space in the hive gets filled, the queen will slow her egg laying down. Workers prepare cells assuming there'll be a swarm and leave the new queen with enough resources to get her start in the hive they will be abandoning. The old queen will assemble and initiate a swarm before the new queen emerges, taking 2/3 of the workers with her to find a new colony. However, only 1 out of 5 swarms survive, as they typically can't find a place to stay and run out of resources. Beekeepers generally try to prevent swarming by tricking the bees into thinking they have already done it. This gives the bees a higher survival chance, and the beekeeper gets to keep their colony. The new queens will emerge, and after killing one another will go out to a nightclub to celebrate, and return with plans to pick up where a mother left off. Although unlikely, it is possible for there to be 2 queens if the hive accepts them. Workers collect 20 to 40 kilos of food for the winter, where the hive hibernates, gathering together to keep warm like penguins, with the queen in the core where it's 33 degrees and the other bees switching around between the insulating mantle at 24 degrees and the periphery at 15 degrees Celsius. On the outside, buzzing their bodies and wings to create warmth. Honey stores help as an insulator. As well as this, the cluster of bees is typically at the centre of the hive to keep a stable temperature. The more bees in the cluster, the more likely they will survive the winter. Hive life. Honeybee young are apparently the best cared for young out of any animal, with every new young getting their own room and plentiful amounts of food. A brood pattern is the pattern in which bees use their cells. Brood cells tend to be in the middle of the comb structures, with honey filled near the outside and pollen stored on the very edge. The reason why the queen sends out pheromones, so that everyone knows she is okay, is because the workers can't work unless they know she is safe. She even has an entourage of bees constantly surrounding her at all times to keep tabs on her. Oh yes, the waggle dance. I cannot fathom to you how much joy it brings me to say that bees dance to communicate. Depending on the way the bee dances, they can pass on to other bees where the best flowers are. Crowds of foragers will come to witness these beautifully choreographed dances before smelling the dancer and finding the source. The waggle dance will be performed on the surface of the comb. Simply, the dance is a figure of 8 where the bees wiggle around a little bit between the 2 loops. The direction of the 8 shows the angle of direction from the sun. The length of the dance corresponds to the distance of the food, and the shorter the dance, the closer to the food. And the rate of shakeage refers to the quality of the food source. So the faster the shakeage, the better the food source. If the dance is vertical going up, the food is in the direction of the sun. And if the dance is vertical but going down, the food source is in the complete opposite direction to the sun. Another shorter version of the waggle dance is the round dance. This is an adaptation that bees found to convey food sources in the immediate vicinity quicker than going through a figure of 8 routine. Bees have a mental map of the area around them based on landmarks and recognizable trees or landforms, so even when the sun is not present, they can still navigate. Not quite right, hive. When the queen has issues, this affects the hive, surprisingly. Drone layer. This is a queen who isn't fertile enough to create worker eggs. This is either because she is getting old and is losing her fertility, or she is young and is either a virgin queen, she has not been able to take her mating flight, or she's taken a mating flight but does not have enough sperm to lay fertilized eggs. The only way to deal with these queens is to kill them. This is necessary, as if only drones are born, no work would get done in the hive and everything would start to fall apart. Laying worker. This is another form of drone layer, however this time from the workers of all of the bees. The workers were not allowed to lay eggs. She will either do this if she is a rebellious little titan, or if the queen isn't doing her job, so someone else has to do it. You can tell this is happening as there will likely be more than 1 egg in each cell, as queens are picky to make sure each of their children have their own room. However, new queens are likely to bunk her children since she doesn't quite know what she's doing yet, and that's moderately acceptable. A missing queen. Oh no! This one's likely to be the beekeeper's fault because you accidentally switched the queen. But honestly, don't worry about it. After freaking out, just let the bees do their thing. They'll assign a new lady for the role and get things popping. Honey. Honey has been harvested for the past 8,000 years by humans. Pollen is not an ingredient for honey, it's nectar. Nectar is converted into honey via regurgitation, so bees can keep the longevity of their food source throughout the winter. The hive warmth helps to evaporate water from the honey stores until they are right to be kept. Bees are so deeply indented in the food web that removal could cause a collapse of the system. They pollinate the plants and are eaten by bee wolves, bee eaters, and flower crab spiders. Bees have multiple defense strategies, the most well known being the stinger. The stinger is only on female bees as it's connected to the egg-laying apparatus. Stinging another animal does not necessarily mean death for the bee. If the stinger stays lodged in the stung, when a bee goes to move, the insides of the bee will be pulled out. This happens when a human is stung, as our skin is moderately tough, or tough enough for a stinger to get caught at least. The serrated edge of the stinger also causes it to get lodged. Venom bulbs attached to the stinger have controlled release, so the venom is not wasted. This also means that when taking out the stinger from your skin, you must flick it out, because if you squeeze it to pull it out, you're injecting yourself with more venom, effectively making yourself more uncomfortable. Although the queen has a stinger, it's not barbed, so she can sting as many times as she pleases, but this feature is only used for taking down competitor queens. Pollination. Pollination-wise, bees help spread plants' genes across a large area which the stationary plants would not be able to reach otherwise. Flowers go out of their way to attract bees. The nectar contains small traces of caffeine and nicotine. It is found that most bees are born to have drug addictions, ignorantly believing that they are getting a bigger reward than they are. This makes them want to come back hit after hit. Pseudo-copulation is where plants will pretend to be sexy bees to seduce the actual bees. This helps plants to spread their seed by first seducing the bees. Different types of senses in their antennae. This has evolved due to the multitude of scents that flowers give off. As bees approach flowers, they gain a small positive charge, and since flowers have negative charges, the pollen automatically gets attracted to the bee's body. Bees also perceive a different spectrum of colours than humans. Though they cannot perceive reds, they perceive ultraviolets. So some flowers that look plain to us are rather vibrant to bees. I just, look at how pretty all of these UV flowers are. This is how bees see flowers. I wish I could see flowers like this. This is beautiful. Just, I'm jealous. I'm jealous of bees. I'm not gonna lie. Bees see pretty things. I wish I could see flowers like that.